All right, we ready?
We're ready.
All right, we ready, we ready.
Let's do it.
All right, the special meeting of the Board of Education for December 19th, 2023 is called to order. All items being considered this evening are posted on the PPS website under the Board and Meeting tabs. This meeting is being streamed live on PPS TV services website and on Channel 28 and will be replayed throughout the next 2 weeks. Please check the district website for replay times. All right, good evening and welcome everyone. Tonight's agenda, we will have an update on the interim superintendent search, review the informal RFP process, and discuss the proposed communication plan. We'll start off today, and everybody should have gotten something from everyone at least, talking about this stuff. So,
We have two things in front of us.
yeah, so if you have any questions to those things, then let's go there versus going over the validity of the stuff. All right, we'll start out with Director Scott and Director Brim Edwards on the interim superintendent search.
Thank you, Chair Hollins. I'll go ahead since Director Brim Edwards is virtual. I'll just give a quick verbal update on where we are, and then she can fill in anything that I miss. But I think you also got an email to this effect as well. So the interim selection group, which is Director Brim Edwards and me, we're working on the following. We are developing a basic scope of work for the interim superintendent, and that will be along the lines of basic superintendent responsibilities, which are defined in state law, with really the goal of keeping things in the district moving forward over the next 6 months. We've been asking HR to do some market analysis to determine potential salary compensation ranges. We're getting prepared to do a rapid background check and also preparing a draft board resolution. And just as a reminder, the guiding criteria that the board discussed for an interim superintendent is as follows. We're looking for someone who is not a candidate for the current position, someone who has a track record as an effective district leader, also a track record of supporting equitable systems and practices. Ideally, would have experience as a superintendent, would have Oregon school district experience as well, and at a mid to large district or within a large system. And someone who understands that the job is to keep the district moving forward versus disrupting or making big changes or systemic changes. And then a big criteria is also availability, which I think is going to be a challenge over the next 6 months. So ideally, we're going to find a leader who meets most of this criteria and could step into the position as they know the job and have done similar work. I do want to note it may be possible that we'll have to consider things like housing costs if the potential interim does not currently live in the metro region, and we're looking for someone over the next 6 months. But just to put that out on the table, and then I'll just note that recruitment is underway, and we will update the board once we are able to identify potential candidates who meet those criteria.
All right, do we have any questions, comments, thoughts around that?
Sure. Director Brim Edwards, anything that I missed you'd like to add?
No, you covered it well. I just say that we're acting with urgency, knowing that we have a relatively short time frame and also the winter break in front of us.
Okay, I didn't know if Director Green was on or not. I thought I seen something from him, but. All right, any other questions or comments? Oh, he's not on it? Okay. Any other questions or comments around the superintendent search?
I just wondered.
Your mic.
I just wondered have you found anybody yet, or have you talked to people, or what's happening?
We've had some preliminary conversations, but again, it's a challenge to find folks who are both available and sort of meeting those criteria. So really trying to work through pretty quickly, as Director Brim Edwards said, given where we are the week before Christmas, the holidays, and New Year's, it's a little bit of a challenging time, but we are doing some outreach at this point.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. So I had some concerns, but I'll worry about that once we find somebody, and then we can talk about that stuff. All right, next we have Director DePass and Director Sullivan on the informal RFP process.
Okay, before we start on that, I would like to say thank you to Director DePaz, who's done almost all the work and has really helped me learn about this. So Anyway, it's been fun to work with you. Thank you for all your knowledge.
Thank you. We got right on it late last week and drafted, I guess Friday and into the weekend, a boilerplate template that was shared with us for a different search, but we modified the language. I know Director Brim Edwards shared some comments and edits, and I kind of took the liberty of editing some of your edits, not substantially, but around the point value for the criteria. And also because I think one of the things I value, and I think as a board we value, is the inclusion of minority-owned and women-owned businesses. And for search firms, there are very few, if not, I know of one search firm that is a minority woman-owned search firm, and they are not local. And so I edited the language around having local expertise to saying, to prioritize someone that could partner with someone regionally or locally that understands the K-12 landscape, but still allows us to potentially contract with a BIPOC woman-owned firm who has, it would be an opportunity for us as a district to spend a few dollars in that community. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to read it, but there are some written criteria, qualifications. The maximum points available are 20. Experience and approach to the work, we're awarding 30 because they'll have to talk about a timeline, provide information about other searches and demonstrated their expertise in other searches. And then for past performance and price proposal, we've awarded, there's a maximum of 25 points each, but so it's the maximum points being experience approach is kind of our highest priority. And then it goes to cost, past performance, and the qualifications overall. And I think we removed the background checks from this RFP because we had talked about outsourcing that to a third party.
All right. Any comments, questions around this?
I have one very small comment, but around the scope of work. We asked for experienced firms with a history of conducting successful searches for large urban school districts with 20,000 to 70,000 students. And I just wonder if we need that specificity. I would just hate if someone had done a search for an 80,000 student district and somehow got graded down. Can we just say searches for larger urban school districts and leave it open at that point?
Absolutely, and I appreciate that feedback. Yes.
So one comment on that, instead of larger urban districts, because I think actually PPS is on the low end of what would be considered a larger urban district. I would say a mid to large size urban district.
I was wondering if there was language around, like industry standard, what a small district is, what a mid-size, what a larger. I think LA Unified has 600,000 students, so they're probably a larger urban district.
Right. If you look at Council of Great City Schools, we're kind of on the lower end of what would be considered an urban, larger urban district. So I guess, as long as we include mid to larger, I think we capture.
Okay.
So, Chair Holmes, can I make both a comment and a question?
Yeah.
So a comment, Director DePass, I wanted to sort of acknowledge your comment at the beginning about a local partner. My understanding is most of the search firms who do superintendent searches are not locally based. So they're all national or sort of in some other region. And that the assumption by using the term local, it wasn't to exclude any firms. That the assumption is that my assumption was that most in any firm that's going to be doing this work would probably most likely partner with somebody that's either local or regional. They usually have somebody that they bring on as a consultant. So that wasn't meant to be exclusionary. It was just the assumption that they would have that. I am curious about the cost, the change in the points. and I'm trying to pull up the document. From my perspective, the value that having been through some of these searches, I would hope we'd have a weighting on a higher rating on past performance, because that, the most critical thing is that we get we get the results that we want, which is the recruitment and hiring of a superintendent. And I would hope that among our weighting, that would be weighted disproportionately more than, say, not, cost obviously is a factor, but that we sort of put a premium on getting results and having had a track record of successful searches.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, as a board, we hadn't really talked about what our ranking system is or how we would express our values here. And so I made my best guess at those past performance and price proposals being equal. If we say past performance, sometimes that would tend to preference firms that have been doing it for a long time, producing maybe predictable results, versus allowing for low barrier entry to firms that might not have been around for 40 years, that are emerging, to offer them a chance at it. They would still have to prove that they'd performed. All of the firms will have, but it allows for newer entrants into this search industry. That was the reasoning behind my wanting to give equal points to each of those categories. But I'm open, it doesn't have to be just me.
Yeah, I just have a
Eddie,
really quick question too.
Oh, yeah, I was about to call on
Oh,
you
yeah.
next. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Director DePass and Sullivan. I think I really like the priorities that are listed in the document. I think they're really good. I guess I just have one question. It's about why having a point system. Just because I figure with every individual has different strengths and weaknesses, we may want to weight it differently. So I'm just kind of curious what the reasons behind having a point system in the first place are. Yeah, just want to be educated. Thanks.
I'll answer that just the best way I know, and that's that for public procurement and public agencies that have an obligation to spend a portion of their dollars, the public dollars, in communities of color and women-owned industries and service-disabled veterans, one of the points count as a way of ranking your value system. So if you really want, let's say you really want a woman-owned firm with 10 years of experience, you can weight the point structure to indicate what it is to any firms that propose what your values are and how they can speak to those values. But I don't think there's any hard and fast rules. I think the points indicate it's like a grading scale. If your professor tells you you're going to get an A if you include these 5 elements, then you want to include those five elements if you care about the A. And it's just a way of indicating that what's important to us as a public agency.
Great, thank you. That makes sense.
All right. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? So it seems like, everybody's okay with the point system as it is. So, all right. Any other questions? Oh, yeah, I'm fine.
It seemed like when we talked last time, we'd set kind of a limit of what we'd spend, not necessarily how one firm might be more than the other. So is that maybe more appropriate to say?
We talked about it amongst ourselves, and in some RFPs, there is a understanding that it doesn't go above 200,000 or whatever the dollar figure is. But this one, they're going to be experienced search firms that are going to give us a cost proposal, and I would expect that they would be pretty close. They're all going to have similar elements, and it will just be up to us to determine if there's a widespread, how we handle it at the time.
Okay.
I mean, if you get one bid that's 50,000 and one that's 200,000, you have to wonder you have to ask some questions about what's being included and what's excluded, and what the proposers understood. Okay.
Really quickly, one problem with including a cap is that sometimes it's also a price signal to the folks who are coming in to say, oh, if we're saying we're not going to spend more than 75 and we're in 100, then they say, oh, well, that's what they budgeted, so that's what I'll propose at. So sometimes we want to sort of leave it open to say, hey, if you think it's going to cost 125, then tell us that. But if you think you can do it for 75, tell us that. So
Okay, and we can have in our own mind what we have. Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions regarding the RFP? Awesome. All right. So the next thing.
Yeah, I just want to note that if the rest of the board is okay with that, I'm not, just want to note that I'm not comfortable with the heavier weight on the price versus past performance. Just because you generally get, one shot on these. And so my preference would be to know that we have a firm with a strong track record of, and they're going to have to describe it, but have a strong track record, and that be of recruiting and delivering a pool of qualified candidates that end up being hired. And so for me, that would be just a higher premium than somebody being, I don't know how we're going to score the points, but because the price is what it is, and so, and we can value that if somebody's proposal is too high, but I think we should, from my experience, put a premium on track record of delivering a successful search, and with as noted in the proposal, with a diverse pool of candidates. So I just want to note that.
Gotcha. Noted. All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns, thoughts?
I also have a question just about our approach in terms of, initially we talked about asking three firms to apply, and I know there's a longer list, and I'm curious about how we're going to decide how it's going to be open, and if we're going to have basically allow not have requests for proposals, but instead have it be widely distributed, and how we narrow it down. Say if we had a lot of responses, and whether we wanted to have some sort of mechanism that if we had a high number of responses, that then we narrowed it down to 3 and had some sort of mechanism deciding among the 3 versus like a much larger group. So I'm curious about the process which we would use to decide who we're going to ask to submit proposals, and then how we're going to narrow it down from there.
Yes. So the goal is, they have their RFPs in by the 9th. That give us about a week, I believe we have, until we select the group. And I'm assuming we'll go with the ones who have some of the highest scores, and then those will be the ones that we can look at to invite to come and present.
I want to speak to that too. So, I've worked in public procurement before, and I know that it's really important to be intentional about who you reach out to. And a couple of days ago, I shared with the board a small list of searches that came up in response to a question from school board partners asking specifically about superintendent searches. And so the same, universe of about 6 search firms came up. And then I was asked to add a couple of other firms that weren't on that list. And so I think that might be the universe of superintendent search firms. I think it's about, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it was maybe about 8 firms altogether. So are you concerned that we would be getting 30 proposals, or I want to make sure we're inclusive of there's only a single, I think, woman-owned business, and I'd like to make sure that we at least capture that. But and so my thought was to open it up so we're not excluding any firm.
My question was what the process was. So are we sending it to that list of firms with a request, and that's the universe? Or if somebody said, I saw that you are doing a recruitment and they're not on the list, that they're going to be included, or are we going to use that list? I'm trying to just understand the process. And then the other thing, Director Hollins, or I'm sorry, Chair Hollins, the proposal the informal RFP doesn't have an interview process. It just has a scoring. So what's contemplated in the document is not interviewing the top firms, which is why I asked that question.
Okay, so let me address one thing. The paper says the 24th. It's supposed to be the 9th.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. I think when we
Yeah.
first talked, though, we would talked about getting them in on the 22nd.
Yeah.
And then I looked at the date, and I was like, well, let's move it out a couple days, but it's the 9th.
Yes.
So
So
this is gonna go out as soon as we approve it. And does that give us enough time to get good proposals? I mean, I know a lot of the proposers probably will have boilerplate language, they'll have proposal templates ready to go, but there's gonna be some customization needed in between the 1st, which is New Year's, and the 9th, when this is due. I don't think it's enough time.
Well, I think it should be, and the only reason why I say that is because I talked with some folks who have done recruitment for, looking at firms and stuff, and they thought it was adequate enough, because I thought so too at first. That's why I said the 22nd. But I had a phone call with a few folks who have done this multiple times, and they were like, yeah, that should be enough time. So
Okay.
that's just my point of view on that.
Yeah, didn't they say at purchasing, they thought that would be enough?
I think when we
Yes.
asked them, I think they said that would be enough time too.
Okay, so we can
Yeah.
go with the 9th.
So
if
we'll make that
everybody okay with
change.
that? Okay. And then also, as far as the process of interviewing candidates, do that need to be in the RFP of interviewing candidates?
It's a good question, and
Yeah.
actually, I don't know if staff's available to answer or not. To Director Edwards' point, I think it's, my
Should be
experience
in
is
here.
that the RFPs usually, you have the option of pulling people in for an interview, but it's not required if we don't need to, if there's a clear favorite or we want to make a decision. So I would agree that making sure we have that option if we want to exercise it, but not making it a requirement. And so I don't know, reading through the proposal evaluation award, it's not mentioned. I don't know if that prohibits us from doing that or not.
I
So
would think
just-
that they might
just
want to, if we do have an optional interview, we might want to add that into this RFP
Yeah.
so they could propose on a cost should it come up.
Yeah, and I know at least from the conversations I had, a lot of search firms know that interviews happen. So I don't know if they say if we need to have it in here or not, but it would probably be safe to have it in here, like Director Scott was saying, have it in here. And then we can determine if it could be optional for them or not.
So it sounds like the board wants to make sure we have the option.
Yes,
Yeah,
Just to
absolutely.
say there
Agreed.
may be,
Yeah.
an interview.
So should we add some language to this that says, like, as a line item on a budget, or?
So just so what it's worth, I did ask this question and it was taken out, but it can be added back in at the tier 2 second stage. But it's not currently in, but we can add it back in.
Sorry, Director Edwards, what tier 2 second stage? I wasn't sure that was referring to.
That's where it was in the proposal, after they're ranked, and then you'd add it back in with evaluation criteria.
So in section 4, proposal evaluation and award, adding the language back in there.
I guess he's asking is, is that where we put that at under proposal, evaluation, and awards?
I don't have it in front of me.
I believe there
I'm
was a-
assuming we can get the staff direction to add it back in at the appropriate place.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
In that direction,
Yeah, that's great. There was a table just under the table that talks about experience and past performance in the price proposal. There was another, the boilerplate that we were working with was for 2 different searches, so we had to do some
okay.
cleanup.
Okay, so it sounds like we just direct staff to add that back in change the date to the 9th. And then for us, from the 9th, we should be able to have 7 days, which really gets us to the 16th, which we have another special session. And we can kind of just accumulate, the highest ones based on everyone's individual assessments or scoring. And then by the 16th, we should be able to narrow it down to the top 3. That sound like a plan for everyone?
That's great.
That's just a query, just to make sure that we're on the same page. So there was a list of firms that were circulated, and then there were additions that were added. That's who we're sending it out to, and that's the universe?
Hold on, Julia. I want to get the process done first, because you're going to another section. So the process as far as from getting it on the 9th, and then us individually scoring them, and so by the 16th, we should be able to narrow down to the final 3. I just want to make sure everybody is clear on that process. Any objections? Okay.
No objections from here.
All right. So now you can go ahead and ask your question.
So it's back to the start of the process. This is we're going to use the list that Director DePass circulated along with the ads that were made. And that's the universe of the firms. The question is that's the universe of the firms we're sending it to. It's not an open RFP. It's the firms that were listed.
I think it is an open RFP, because I think all RFPs have to be open. I think we send it to certain people because it's underneath the limit, but then we post it publicly and anyone can respond.
I just found the list. There are 9. There's a kind of a superintendent search directory, which isn't a firm necessarily, but above that, there are 9 firms listed. I'm happy to resend that list again if it would be helpful.
So, hold on. So are you asking, is this going to just be open to any firm or just the ones that we have on that list? And so I think the answer is.
I was trying to just get clarity.
Yeah, it's going to be open to all firms.
And we'll specifically send it to the list that has been circulated to board members.
Correct. And the thing about it, search firms know when a school district is looking for a new soup and going through this search. So I'm sure we're going to get a variety of search firms. It's a small industry, and word gets around quick. I've already been approached by like 5 already. So it's out there. So I'm going to assume that we're going to get a lot of interest, but it will go out to everyone. Any other comments, questions, thoughts? All right, so you got what we're going to do as far as changing the date and.
I can follow up right now.
Okay. Okay, next we have the superintendent search communication plan. So me, Director Green, Director Eddy, and even though Frankie had just emailed me, she's going to be on this as well. And she's going to work with us with the DCU group to make sure that we are including our students as well. So just kind of a basic plan. It's an ongoing plan, so it's not static. It can move, it can evolve, it can pivot, it can change. But this is just kind of an outline of the process that we can use to make sure that we are getting the message out to our community and our staff and everyone. So kind of the key messages is about making sure that we are transparent, make sure we have community involvement throughout this process, making sure we have a clear timeline, and making sure we have things accessible for our community. So we got a few items that we'll set up. So for instance, communication channels, website. My understanding that is set up and on our PPS board page website already, and by phone, as you can see people calling. Using social media, and when I mean social media, I'm talking about PPS platforms, whether it's PPS Facebook, Twitter page, what have you. Email updates, sending them to parents, teachers, principals, school staff, including links to events that we might have as we going through this process, community meetings, and a lot of that stuff will be co-designed with our search consultant firm that we hire. But I want to make sure that we have a direct direction that we give our search firm to say this is what we would like to do once we have selected the search firms. Of course, the press releases, newsletters, flyers, and posters. I'm not really into the flyers and posters. It was just a suggestion. That can go if it's okay. I'm okay with that. Community engagement events, and again, this is another one that will be designed with our search consultants. Getting community input when we have forums or we got things that meet the candidates. However that process is going to go. Focus groups, especially with our diverse stakeholders. If we're going to do stuff like online surveys, email feedback, I know we have our Let's Talk piece, so if we can create something for our Let's Talk that specifically talks to the superintendent search piece, and then just kind of evaluate on a regular basis how effective we are being, and making sure that if we need adjustments, we have the space and time to do that. So, any questions? Thoughts?
Well, it's a lot, and I guess how we're going to do it, who's going to do it, something we have to work out.
Yeah. And a lot of this stuff will help with, hopefully our search firm kind of can help us out with this stuff too. But we already have like our Facebook page, our website that like the updates for like this meeting will go on there. The video of this meeting will go on there. So we just start trying to look at picking those things out. Director Silverstein.
Hi, thank you. Sorry, I'm a little sick, so I sound funny. But I think I just wanted to mention, first of all, I really like the plan, and this is making me really optimistic for how this search is going to go, showing the commitment to engaging the community. I think in the terms of press releases, it'd be really great if those press releases can get sent to like the high school publications as well, because I think that's a pretty direct link for informing students. And then I think also, like you mentioned, I can really help with like looping in the district student council. I know that we have our own Instagram, so like I saw on the list, like talking about some like live Q&As on social media and stuff. So if we're looking to do some student focused stuff, I think the DSC will be a great opportunity. And then also the district student council is working on creating our own newsletter for students, like an overall kind of one. And so we were talking about having a section that would be like an update section about the superintendent search. So I just wanted to let you all know that.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to working with you on that. I think it's real important that, during this process that we really take account of our students' voices. So I'm looking forward to it. Director Brim-Edwards.
Yeah, thanks to this team. Excellent work, just like the last work group. The one issue that I just want to raise from a capacity standpoint is from our comms team, is that there's always the question of how much the search firm is going to do and how much our internal staff is going to do, and what their capacity is. Just given we have all of our normal ongoing school-based and district-based comms work that's being done. I know from just past searches, it's a significant additional work stream. So I just want to flag that when we talk about it, like understanding who the expectation of who is going to do that work. So for example, the community engagement, say around the position description, if we wanted to have a series of focus groups or stakeholder groups around the positions, developing the refreshed or new position description, just knowing, is that going to be done by the search firm in conjunction with the board, or is it going to be the district comms team, and just making sure we have the capacity for that. So I just want to flag that so we have understanding who's going to, because it is, I know there's a high degree of interest and a significant amount of interest by our community. So being able to push out communications proactively is a fair amount of work during the search process, overlaid with the budget process and everything else that's happening in the district. So just flag that, how we're, the conversation with the comms team about how they might handle that in conjunction with the search firm.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And one of the things came out of that conversation that I had this past week is that the search firm, a lot of the search firms have those type of communication plans and abilities to hold some of those events as well, working with the board. So going to what you're saying versus the search firm versus our comms. And so that's part of the stuff that we will be looking for when we are evaluating the search firms, is their ability to be able to do that type of work as well. Like I said, from the conversations, the search firms should have a plan for that as well. So definitely make sure that we are keeping note of that during this process for the search firms.
The only thing I would note is the need to keep moving forward while we're in that RFP process. I mean, if we're not, optimistically, we'll get a search firm on by the end of January, but it would be nice to continue over this next month to be doing work on the, for instance, the position description. And I'm even thinking about, we want to engage our community. I think I've heard from the board around that position description. And I just worry if we wait, a good executive search is going to take 3 to 4 months. And, at minimum. And so it would be good that the firm that comes in can hit the ground running with a job description that has already, been vetted. It's already been, through the process. Maybe they just sort of pick it up and carry it across the finish line. But I don't want to start that process in late January because I think that puts us, behind. So
Perhaps they can, they've probably done candidate profiles. They probably have a menu of options for us to look through, or rather than starting from scratch.
yeah, I'm just thinking it'd be nice for us if we have a position description that, the board, the community, other stakeholders have weighed in on, that we can hand them. It speeds up the process.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think from the 2017 search, we have there was very extensive engagement with the community, whether it was stakeholder groups, PAPSA, our labor partners, students, community-based groups. So we have that list, so we could use that as sort of the starting point, and we could look at the last position description as needing a sort of refresh. But I think to Director Scott's point of sort of pulling that out and then creating the list, circulating it among the board of who needs to be added, and then there is sort of a process that we used in 2017 to get feedback, and it actually was fairly remarkable. I felt like with the diverse group of stakeholders that we had, that there was in that context in 2017 a real consensus around the type of leader we wanted. So we can basically use that as a foundation, and just the stakeholders we engaged, and make sure that we have everyone we want to have included, but we don't have to start from scratch.
Yeah, and I was looking at the calendar, and I'm thinking if we start that process right after the first of the year, so say that the week of the 8th or the week of the 7th, start that process then. So I like the idea of looking at the job description that we have now, looking at some of the characteristics that we want now can get circulated now, and then by that end of the week of the 7th, which is the 12th, we can start having some ideas of, as a board, what we want, what we're looking for, and then start a plan of how do we engage the community and looking for what their wants are, what their qualification, what their characteristics that they want as well. So if we can get a copy of the current job description, some of the stuff that Director Brumet was talking about in 2017, we can disseminate that to our board. So between now and the 8th of January, we can start making comments, thoughts and stuff. And then that week, we can come up with a plan of how to engage the community in that process as well. All right. Any other questions, comments, thoughts around the communication plan? All right. All right. Well, if no other business, meeting. Oh, go ahead.
When I read this earlier, talks a lot about updates and just a real certain place where people in the community can send their questions. And then maybe a timeline of when we answer them, so people know if their questions come in, they're going to be answered. Because I think sometimes there's a lot out there, but it doesn't really get coordinated. and
Yeah,
answered.
so if they have questions, we have we have a way of Let's Talk, that those questions will come to us, especially since it's about the superintendent's transition plan. So they can go to Let's Talk, and then we can respond as we get those as well.
All right.
Director Burnett, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I was just gonna say on that point, as things come in the communication plan, there is a sort of bi-weekly update at our either board meetings or the work sessions. And I know that what we've done in the past is, as questions come in, there's a fair amount of sort of overlap across the questions. And so we can use the opportunity when we're communicating out to look at the trends among the types of questions we're getting, and use our the sort of various channels of communication that have been outlined in the communication plans to answer those questions, again, either at board meetings or just in like updates on the website, because they do generally just run in batches, or there's trends of the types of questions people ask. And so we can continue to point them back to different places where to find that information, and then proactively push it out.
Thanks.
All right. Any other questions, comments, thoughts on the communication plan? All right. No other business. We'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.